Joining me now is one of the lawyers who argued for the continuation of TPS at the Supreme Court on behalf of Syrian refugees, Ahilan Arulanantham, a professor from practice at UCLA Law and the faculty co-director of the Center for Immigration Law and Policy. Ahilan, I asked all my immigration advocate friends who it was I needed to talk to today. They all said, no one knows this case better than Ahilan. You argued this case. Tell me then your response from the justices.
Well, it's deeply disappointing, Alicia, and thank you very much for having me. The court didn't say that these decisions are lawful. What the court said was that the federal courts have no jurisdiction to review the decisions of the Trump administration. So even if the secretary didn't consult with the State Department, for example, about whether Haiti and Syria are safe, which she didn't, it doesn't matter. The courts can't do anything about it. And that's obviously really troubling because it effectively guts this law. It's a bipartisan law that was passed in 1990. It was designed to make TPS decisions, humanitarian protection decisions, immune from the kind of political games that the Trump administration is playing. And it really hands the administration a huge victory that they couldn't get through Congress. They couldn't have enacted a law to kill off the TPS statute now, but they don't have to because the Supreme Court said that they don't have to follow the law that Congress passed long ago.
The majority opinion found no evidence of racial animus motivating the Trump administration to end the program. I mean, even if you can look past the fact that they are hiding behind judicial review, that piece of the decision seems pretty laughable.
Yes, and I thought it was telling that the majority opinion doesn't quote the actual statements, but Justice Kagan in the dissent for herself and Justice Sotomayor and Jackson does quote them. He says they're poisoning the blood of the country. He talks about them eating cats and dogs, which is a 100-year-old racist trope. For this administration for this court to say that those statements don't even plausibly reflect racial animus is just preposterous. But I do think it's similar to what they're doing. It's what the Supreme Court did in the Calais decision, which I'm sure you have covered. They're trying to really gut the Equal Protection Clause and make it impossible for people to challenge race discrimination by the federal government, and that's definitely what this decision helps to make happen.
Can you help us understand the conversation that attorneys are currently having with TPS holders in this country? I mean, we're talking about, in some cases, people who've built their entire lives here, people who have American-born children. What is their recourse? Where do they go next?
And those are devastating conversations. I've gotten to know many members of the TPS communities now for about a decade because the first Trump administration also went to war against the statute. And as you say, they're people who have lived here for years. They've raised their families here. The status is temporary, but people's lives aren't temporary. They have kids and get married and advance in their jobs and contribute to their communities. And now they're being told that they could be detained and deported, and they'll lose their jobs conceivably as soon as in 32 days, and maybe even sooner in some of the cases. So people are going to lose their jobs and will have devastating economic effects for them personally, and those obviously will reverberate throughout the communities. We're talking about more than 1 million people. But then beyond that, they all face the possibility of detention and deportation unless they have some other lawful immigration status, and most of them do not. They're brutal conversations to have. It's just absolutely heartbreaking conversations to have with people to tell them that the government has decided it doesn't matter whether or not Haiti is safe. We're going to send you there. People who are working as doctors and as nurses and as caretakers and as parents to children. It's awful. It's really, really tough work, I have to say.
Ahilan, I care about those 400,000 people. I care about the 1.3 million TPS holders. I still have to remind myself that this is even bigger than them. I mean, this is an administration that has been explicit about their goals in remaking the composition of this country. Stephen Miller has been very clear what is driving him. This is one brick in the road they are building toward a reimagined America for folks who are watching beyond the stakes, for the folks who have temporary protected status. What does it mean for our identity as a nation of immigrants?
I think the Supreme Court is playing a crucial role in enabling the Trump administration to remake the country in the racial image that you're talking about. And so the Constitution from the 14th Amendment prohibits actions that are motivated by racial animus. And as you've seen from this decision, like I said, Calais and other decisions, the Supreme Court is rendering those protections meaningless. And in the immigration context in particular, where the racial future of the country gets debated, right? Because so much of immigration law, whether we like it or not, is about engineering the racial composition of the country. And it shouldn't be that way. It should be about deciding what's best for family unity and promoting the economy and humanitarian protection. But the administration has instead made its immigration policy about engineering the racial composition of the country. That's why I believe either every single one, or maybe all but one or two refugees who have been admitted under this administration have been white South Africans in a world full of refugee crises, obviously, which affect many other people who look more like you and me. And so I think it's really important for us to understand that the role that the Supreme Court is playing here is really to allow the government to do these things without having to go through Congress. There's another case decided today, too, also horrific, 6-3 decision, basically allowing the administration to cut off asylum at the southern border. This is something that right-wing anti-immigrant Republicans have wanted to do, again, for a decade. Just like TPS, they wanted to kill off TPS protections for this time. And what they haven't been able to do is get it done through Congress. And the Supreme Court is allowing them to do it without having to go through Congress, again, by adopting very implausible readings of these statutes. So to me, what it suggests is that if we care about these things, Supreme Court reform has to be very, very high up on the agenda. And I hate to say that as somebody who's litigated in the Supreme Court. I've had 4 Supreme Court cases in the last decade. But I'm sure you'll talk to many other Supreme Court litigators. If they're being honest, they'll tell you the same thing. That's going to be a central component of what we need to do if we're going to try to take back the country and actually restore the vision of justice and human rights, which is supposed to be inhering in the Constitution.
Certainly where the conversation goes next. Ahilan Arunalathan, thank you so much for being with us.